Oh, hello, Ronald Raygun. What can we do you for?
I wanted to talk about unions, but now I have questions about Bill Maher's butt to nose tube.
Yeah, okay. Well, how can I answer?
Is this like did you ever read Dune?
I don't know if I read it. I know I saw the movie.
I know where you're going with it, though. Yeah.
Is it like a still suit like that they use in the desert to capture all their moisture so they can like re-drink it?
It's possible.
It's like a fart still suit.
Sort of, probably.
Mm-hmm.
You probably don't. I mean, that's the point. He doesn't want those to go to waste because he thinks that they smell like, roses.
Right.
Right.
Real quick, I think I've mentioned this before on the show, but my dad was a member of IBEW, and for a long time, he was an industrial electrician. And when I was in middle school, he was diagnosed with MS, which was, that's a big diagnosis, obviously, but especially for somebody who, worked with his body and his hands. And really, if it wasn't for the union, labor laws in general, and then on the back end, when he finally did have to retire, Social Security, Medicare, and those sorts of things, we would have been totally ruined. And that has obviously like a ripple effect through the whole family and then later the community. And I think it's worth pointing out that the people who are trying to fight the labor movement are also trying to fight those other things on the back end. I mean, it would be sort of one thing if you didn't like unions, but you thought that, people should qualify for full Social Security at 45 or something. I mean, if you had some sort of backup, that would be one thing, but they hate everything all along the way, all the way down to things like, food stamps, if we had needed that kind of help. So, I did want to ask your opinion, and then I'll take your answers off the phone. The one criticism I've heard of unions usually comes up in the context of like a crappy public school teacher that the parents all kind of hate, and they blame the union for being able to fire somebody that they perceive as being bad at their job. And then I heard on a plane a few months ago, a flight attendant telling a passenger that the reason why they had such good service, and I honestly don't remember the airline, but they said that it's because they were non-union, which means that everybody who worked there, really worked there because they wanted to. And so it's this idea that like unions protect bad workers.
Right.
I don't think that that's true, but I'm curious what you know about sort of, being in a union doesn't mean it's like impossible to lose your job.
No, it does. No. And I can tell you in the context of teachers, it does mean that there is a process in which a teacher, it's not an easy process in which a teacher can be fired because you want to make sure that you don't have administrators who are have a personal issue with a teacher, don't like their pedagogical style, don't like their politics. I mean, you need to protect these workers. But here's the other thing. It's not like, and this came up, 7-8 years ago when there was like this issue about firing teachers in California. It's not like there's a line around the block for people to become teachers. We have a shortage of teachers in this country, but like there is not a single district, I would say, in the country where there isn't a, to varying degrees, a shortage of teachers. So the idea that it's so hard to fire these teachers and that somehow there would magically be a new teacher in that position is just wrong, first off.
Right.
And it is definitely, you definitely have more protection when you're a member of a union, without a doubt. That's part of the point. But like, The idea that you can be fired at any moment ultimately is going to impact the workers too. I mean, like that guy that we had call in just at the beginning of the show, who's working for this motorcycle company, and he won't even develop any type of relationship to his work because he knows at any moment he's completely expendable to these people.
I'd also say, like, it's not that, like, these people who are making much less money than CEOs have any more protection in, like, any tangible sense than wealthier people in this country. And they also make millions and millions of dollars on top of it to protect them. But I would agree that when you hear anti-union sentiment, the bad teachers thing is probably the number one talking point that you hear. But I'm hearing that less and less these days.
Well, because the corporate education reform movement, it was sort of like fell apart.
Yeah.
Appreciate the call.
Yeah, I just never had any sense. Sorry, last thing from my dad. I mean, growing up, and I worked with him for one summer, and there was never any kind of sense that, like, hey, you know what? We're union. We show up at the job site 15 minutes late. And
no.
If you take a half an hour lunch and at the end you kind of feel like stretching, like.
No, it is definitely harder to fire union teachers than in like a private school, without a doubt. But in terms of, like, you know, and certainly within the context of the public sector, it's a little bit it is trickier to fire people because we have things like civil service rules and whatnot. But in terms of like private industry, I mean, the union's going to stand up and for unfair firings, but there's no the idea that it's harder to fire more or less within private industry and most of these things, union members, I don't think so. No. Appreciate the call.
Also, like, the implicit message is like the problem here is you folks, the least among you, and which is just an immediate divide and conquer thing. When, like you said, like the real dynamic is, rather than paying you a raise, we are going to take all the knowledge that we've gained from employing you and fire you and hire someone cheaper.